The opposition Democratic Alliance claims the space is closing in around former Free State politicians such as Mosebenzi, Zwane and Magashule because officials are no longer willing to fall on their swords to protect their former political heads. The party released a statement saying this after Free State Human Settlements MEC Zwane made some damning statements at the Zondo Commission of Inquiry on Friday. His testimony is linked to a multi-million rands Free State housing project scandal, which saw money being wasted in illegal prepayments to contractors and suppliers for work not delivered. Political analyst Ongama Mtimka joins us now to discuss this, the testimony out of the State Capture Commission. A very good evening to you, Mr. Mtimka, and thank you so much for speaking to us. Do you concur, firstly, with the sentiments expressed by the DA that the space is closing in, pressure is being brought to bear on political figures who have for long so-called made their officials to take blame for these issues?
Good evening, Tsepiso. Thank you for having me this evening. I strongly believe that we're getting more than that. We actually getting to understand the nature of state capture and making sense of the report produced. I think it was sponsored by the Church Council, which kind of explained the way in which the repurposing of institutions happen. But with the testimony of Mosebenzi Zwane, taken together with the former DG as well as HOD's testimonies, we're beginning to see at which levels did the deep state institutions or the shadow government collide with the visible government, the legal government, the one that we see compared to the deep state. And in what ways did that play itself out? So in terms of the purpose of the commission, we're getting to understand the full extent of state capture and how parallel institutions collided with one another, and who got to be collateral damage of those, of state capture, both being the poor as well as some officials who really received what can now be seen to have been the arrogance of political power.
And in exactly that, as you're saying, are we getting a better sense from Mr. Zwane's statements about due process, political principles, civil society, its role in all of this, the state as it is, how it should function, and the deep state, as you say?
So we're getting two things in terms of his testimony, Tsepiso. One, the idea that those who had political power at the time and were busy repurposing state institutions had a sense of invisibility about their power. And so they thought that they were, in fact, if let's give Mosebenzi Zwane a benefit of doubt that what he claims that he didn't know what the rules said about how pertaining to the way of procurement that was proposed, abandoning an open tender process and going for a database which was blatantly illegal. Let's give him a benefit of doubt, notwithstanding the fact that the former HOD says the minister as delegation did inform the province about the illegalities of the scheme. If we give him a benefit of doubt and say, well, he didn't know, you know what it suggests is that those who were politicians that were powerful at the time were so much confident about the protection arising from their patronage networks that they didn't even as much as care about what the rule was, what the law was, because they felt that they had the power and therefore would be protected. I don't know whether they thought this was going to be the case.
And I want to latch on to that, because that process regarding hand-picking companies to do the job, as you speak about that database, this seems to have been a common theme at the Zondo Commission, including submissions on ESCOM. Does it mean that it's time for country to admit that the tender system is failing us?
So the opposite of the tender system is the state insourcing all of the functions. And part of the accepted business practice is that if the state insourced all the contracting that happens, as was the case, for example, during the apartheid years and even in the homelands, what you will find is that indeed you will boost the capacity, the state will be creating jobs, but you will have a lot of redundant capacity within the state, such that people who would otherwise have been employed on a specific project and then get released once that project is complete the state wouldn't be able to do so. So I don't think the tendering system is wrong. We have a problem of failure to police the system and failure to prosecute those that are abusing it. The system itself allows for government to outsource certain functions, such as, for example, infrastructure development, and be able to gain access to skills as and when needed to execute certain projects. So, I mean, it's not the tender system per se that's a problem. As we see here, it's breaking, the breaking of the rules concerning how tendering should happen efficiently.
So which then
that's proven.
Which then brings me to my next point: the claims of ignorance of the law and the requirements of the positions that people occupy. Is that then not just a red herring, because they know that it's expected of them and that therefore can get away with these incidents of gross maladministration or fraud by the buffoonery that they portray?
In my earlier life, I worked for a state company that was involved in infrastructure development. One of the things that I noted there is, as brilliant as the executives were, people with executive MBAs and those types of things, one of the key processes they instituted was making sure that no project manager brought a project for approval without a letter from internal legal services explaining its legal ramifications. And I understand that that ought to be how a government operates. So to plead ignorance post facto is really disingenuous. And I say that if they think that this is a way of escape, pleading ignorance, but it also conveys the message, if we give them a benefit of doubt, that they were so sure about the parallel systems and processes they were building and the political support that supported those things, that they didn't even need to bother about legalities. I mean, which senior executive or even political head is not concerned about their future in government, so as to allow a 1 billion rand project to pass without them first checking what are the full legal implications of that decision that they were taking.
Quick and final question, Mr. Mtimka. What should we expect? The Commission Chair has told former President Jacob Zuma to appear before the Commission in November. What should we be anticipating from that appearance if it occurs?
Well, what's interesting now is that the relationship between the Commission and President Zuma is stuck in interpretations of due process, the rules of the Commission, as well as the how the President should be questioned. What I've noted, for example, the letter from the Foundation recently. So what's clear, Tsepiso, for me, as far as President Jacob Zuma is concerned, is that he has little appetite to be drawn into the specifics of how state capture unfolded. Notwithstanding his defense that he established the commission and therefore is willing to participate, it's very clear that he doesn't want to get to a point where he gets to be asked about the specifics of the allegations that have been raised. And as such, I think it's the right decision that the Deputy Chief Justice has taken to ensure that he's subpoenaed, and I hope that he gets enough counsel among his legal people to actually, subject himself to this process. I think he realizes that a lot of things are closing in on him in terms of the evidence that's before the Commission.
All right. Thank you so much for your time and insights. Political analyst Ongama Mtimka.